Ladies and gentlemen, good day and welcome to the Q1 FY23 post-results conference call of Bosch Limited, hosted by Batlivala & Karani Securities India Private Limited. As a reminder, all participant lines will be in the listen-only mode, and there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions after the presentation concludes. Should you need assistance during the conference call, please signal an operator by pressing star then 0 on your touchtone phone. Please note that this conference is being recorded. I now hand the conference over to Mr. Annamalai Jayaraj from Batlivala & Karani Securities India Private Limited. Thank you, and over to you, sir.
Thanks, Faizan. On behalf of B&K Securities, welcome to Bosch Limited 1Q FY22-23 post-result conference call. From Bosch Limited management, we have with us today Mr. Soumitra Bhattacharya, Managing Director, Mr. Guru Prasad Mudlapur, Joint Managing Director and Chief Technology Officer, and Ms. Karin Gilges, Chief Financial Officer. Mr. Soumitra Bhattacharya will make a PowerPoint presentation and will be followed by a question and answer session. To view the PowerPoint presentation by Mr. Bhattacharya, please click the key meeting link which we have provided in the conference call invite. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Annamalai Jayaraj, for your continued support, and friends and colleagues, good afternoon and welcome to this part of the call. I sincerely hope that all of you are healthy and keeping safe. Today we had our annual general meeting, and it was a very positive meeting, and we would like to first share with you the macroeconomic policies, followed by later an aftermarket automotive market update, and then walk you through the financials. Finally, I'll end with the highlights for the quarter, which is affecting our business. The global economy is facing a downward risk on growth, and we all know that because there's very high inflation happening. Some of the large economies, including the US, have already started contracting. While the central banks continue to hike key policy rates in the last few weeks, one has noticed that the narrative is slowly shifting from inflation to growth. Coming to the Indian economy, a host of indicators suggest that the economic recovery is ongoing. The PMIs continue to be in expansion. GST collections, you've already seen, are at an all-time high and continue to be robust. Capacity utilization levels are also inching upwards, and investments for new projects are also showing a positive movement. Employee conditions and supply chain pressures, there are of course tight situations, but relatively they are easing a little bit. We see a good progress of the monsoon. Of course, colleagues, the monsoon is still not totally even, though of course reservoirs are getting filled up. Also, the Kharif sowing has been progressive. We see a positive year-on-year change thus far. That said, like the rest of the world, India too is facing a high inflation, which has resulted in the RBI revising the GDP forecast for FY23 now down to 7.2%, and also hiking the policy rate by 90 bps and the CRR by 50 bps. I also have to say, colleagues, that the RBI governor is doing a very splendid job in trying his best to ensure India stays in a relatively sweeter spot. Overall, the automotive market production has increased by 31% in the current quarter, with the exclusion of two-wheeler. The bulk of the increase can be contributed to the lower base of April-June 2021, which was, as all of us know, affected by the COVID second wave. Hence, we've done a comparison with the January-March 22 quarter, or which is the quarter 4 of FY21-22. And here we see it greatly flat. Now, this is driven by seasonality. Historically, the first quarter of a financial year is lower than the last quarter of the fiscal year. The chip shortages in the industry, which affected during April and May production of passenger cars and LCV. From June, I have to also say that there has been in the industry an improvement in the chip supply, and while we are aware that in June there was a 1-week shutdown at Suzuki for maintenance, within the segments of PC and LCV, which were generally flat or minor degrowth, this has been driven by a slightly higher backlog order and waiting period. Again, I have to say, you can't take it generically. You have to remember that these order backlogs are defined on models and mixes. For example, in passenger cars, we see that for the automatic and the higher end, the backlog is still relatively high. Now, tractor market grew by double digit in April-June 2022. This has been driven by a lower base of January-March 2022. The Kharif sowing reported on year-on-year decline of 5.3% as on July 1st, 2022. Now, two-wheeler consumption sentiments are still low. This is partly due to the price hike witnessed at the entry-level bikes. BS6 variants of these bikes are in the range of 70,000 rupees up to 90,000 against 50,000 to 60,000 rupees for BS4 bikes. Chip shortages in premium segment also led to lower inventory and larger waiting periods. Now let's look at the automotive market outlook for 2022. Now on this slide, each row represents a particular segment. For instance, the first row represents passenger car, followed by HCV, then LCV, tractors, two-wheelers and three-wheeler segment respectively. The first column represents the 2018, and here I've referred to the calendar year production volumes, which is considered as one of the best years in the Indian automotive industry, and the industry was at its peak. The second column represents the 2020 production volume. Third column represents the 21 production volume. The fourth represents the first half of 22. The fifth and sixth represent the quarter 3 and quarter 4 forecast. The last column represents the expected calendar year 2022 volumes. Basis of these numbers, we are expecting a better year for PC and LCV segments, and we are likely to breach the 2018 peak. Heavy commercial vehicles, two-wheeler and three-wheeler recovery will take quite some time, as we all know, to reach the peak of 2018. Tractors, of course, was the front runner, which peaked already last year, and we are expecting on a high base a minor degrowth this year. Coming to profitability. The overall revenue from operations for April to June 2022 stood at 35,444 million or 3,544 crores, which is an increase of approximately 45% as compared to the corresponding period of the previous year. Please remember the previous year quarter was badly hit by COVID. Now here the automotive sales grew by about 48%, largely driven by powertrain, while the non-automotive sales increased by about 54%, largely led by power tools. Overall product sales have increased by about 49%, primarily on account of a low base of April-June 2021, as I mentioned earlier, owing to the second wave of COVID-19 pandemic. Income from services mainly comprises of R&D services provided to OEMs and Bosch Germany, while the billing of R&D services Bosch has set foot in India as early as 1922 with a sales office in Calcutta, now Kolkata. The history of our company is an invaluable part of its existence. For over 60 years, Bosch India has traversed a remarkable journey in the Indian automotive industry, and for 69 years in India. For the last 5 years, Bosch has invested around 100 million euros or 800 crores developing our smart campus, which we call the Spark.Next campus, which has a capacity to potentially house 10,000 Bosch associates and was officially opened at a ceremony inaugurated virtually by the Prime Minister on 30th June this year. The 76 acres site is Bosch's first smart campus in India and features multiple smart solutions based on sustainability, security, user experience for our associates, customers, and visitors. Not only did the Prime Minister inaugurate our campus, but it was done in the presence of our Honorable Chief Minister of Karnataka, Mr. Basavaraj Bommai, and our Bosch Global Board of Management member, Ms. Phyllis Albrecht. The campus will meet up to 85% of its total energy needs with in-house solar panels and the purchase of Green Group captive power. Almost two-thirds of the annual domestic water demand at Bosch in India is set to meet through rainwater harvesting projects. The campus is a testimony to Bosch's existence as an AIoT company aligned with India's program for carbon neutrality and sustainable targets. By the way, I would like to remind all colleagues that Bosch worldwide and Bosch India attained carbon neutrality under Scope 1 and 2 already in 2020. Bosch India will continue to invest in technologies which are economical, sustainable, safe, and secure. I would like to thank you on behalf of our leadership team for your contribution, your support, and for your patient listening throughout the call. Together as a leadership team, we will now address your queries, and thank you very much, and your questions, please.
Thank you very much. We will now begin the question and answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1 on their touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star and 2. Participants are requested to use handsets while asking a question. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. Reminder to the participants, anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1 at this time. The first question is from the line of Pramod Kumar from UBS. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks a lot for the opportunity, sir. My first question is on the electrification bit. If you can share your thoughts on the two-wheeler electrification, which is happening quite rapidly. Is there anything which you would like to highlight in terms of new order wins, or how the content for Bosch is kind of keeping pace with the rapid electrification what we're seeing in the space? If you can throw some color on that.
So I will hand over to our Chief Technical Officer who also heads our electrification project. Over to you, Guru.
Thank you, Soumitra. So specifically on the two-wheeler electrification topics you asked, we have a full portfolio from the motors, all the power electronics, and of course battery systems. We have been in first generation products with several OEMs. We continue to have further design-ins with new OEMs right now. We are also discussing on getting our batteries, which are, by the way, designed to very high levels of safety and performance, get designed into new OEMs as we speak today. So you will, of course, hear more about where they are in which OEM as and when the OEMs announce that.
Thank you, sir. And second question is on the hybrid side. Given the expectation of electrification and in the car industry as well, the new launches what Toyota Suzuki are talking about, strong hybrid technology in India. What are your thoughts on that broadly as a technology and its relevance in India? And also, if you can kindly confirm whether you are participating in this technology rollout with Toyota Suzuki.
I cannot comment specifically on an engagement with an OEM right now in this call, but we have a full portfolio of solutions for the hybrid applications as well. This is something we've offered to OEMs already for the last 6-7 years now. We've done that all.
This is the operator, so we are not able to hear you. This is the operator, so we are not able to hear you. Ladies and gentlemen, request you all to please stay connected while we check the line for the management. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for patiently waiting. The line for the management is reconnected. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry about this glitch. I don't know where you lost us, but I'll repeat the answer again. I said we cannot comment on a specific engagement with an OEM on hybrid topics right now, at least not during this call. But in general, we have a very good portfolio of solutions for the hybrid applications. In fact, we've been one of the leaders, global leaders in hybrid batteries for a long time now. We have offered solutions also to the Indian OEMs. In terms of its applicability and usefulness, I think it's a very debatable point in terms of what efficiencies it brings in. And as an intermediate technology towards full electrification, probably it has a value, but the ultimate choice is with the OEMs and in terms of how they can show economics to the consumer. We will, of course, provide technologies as they ask. We have the full portfolio here.
No, sorry for that. Just the reason I'm asking this is to confirm in a way Bosch has a presence in India on this is because the idea of this technology is to grab market share both from petrol and diesel categories. And diesel is quite relevant in this segment of mid SUVs. And it's a technology, it's a fuel where we are reasonably stronger, relatively stronger. So just wanted to confirm whether in India we have the presence to understand the implications on the content share and if there's a meaningful shift towards strong hybrid. And I think I understand the sensitivity around not disclosing specific details, but I just want to understand if OEM were to come to you today requesting for a strong hybrid solution, what would be the timeline for them for you to kind of meet that requirement and the OEM to commercially launch the product?
to be there for a long time. Today, electrification is at a very nascent stage, and by 2030, while we expect electrification to increase and improve, and the most optimal in India could be a e-mobility case of 2030 to the extent of 30%, 70% will still continue to remain IC.
Also, I think GDI, you can observe in the market, has started to come into performance passenger car segment as well. So typically OEMs launch 1 liter GDI, 1.5 liter GDI, and also a 1 liter normal car. So these kind of variants are already available in the market. So it's not just the SUV segment, but also the passenger car segment.
Got it, sir. And so just when you talked about the BS6 transition, I think a year or a few years back, actually, you talked about the fact that the OHT segment and the construction equipment space will also be a meaningful part of your BS6 transition order book. So given the changes that have been, timelines have been pushed in that space, etc. So just want to understand, like, would you say that now a substantial portion of that has got into production, or there is still a lot of a major chunk of that transition is still left?
So you have to segregate on the emission norms between vehicles on BS6 versus example tractors or off-highway market. So yes, Bosch is playing in every area of the emission legislation, and like BS4 to BS6, also for the emission change norms, either for CPCB or for TREM 4 to TREM 5, we are fully in, and I am happy to say that we have a pretty solid order book. Now, of course, we don't give you the acquisitions customer-wise, but I can confirm, like we did for BS4 to BS6 transition, that we have done well. We are continuing to acquire, and we are also happy that the government of India is laying down the timelines and are generally following it. Some small shifts have happened, but generally following.
Got it, sir. And just my last question, if I may, please, is that we've seen a step up in the RM cost to sales over the last couple of quarters. It's gone closer to almost like 65%. I understand this might be due to, the commodity prices spiking up. But so to that extent, as we are now seeing some moderation in commodity prices, should we expect that these numbers should moderate and you should see some benefit of commodity price moderation?
So good question again, Sonal. I already in my talk I gave you that there were three elements of the reason for this material cost increase. You referred to one, a very important one, which is raw material price increase. We are working very closely with a win-win situation with our OEMs and our other customers on raw material price increases, logistic price increases, and electronics price increases. Because every organization and every segment, whether it's OEM, tier 1, tier 2, we can absorb some amount and we can also not absorb some amount. And I call this the win-win situation, where even finally the OEM can pass on a certain amount into the customers. So if I summarize a complex topic, you will see that generally the OEMs have the mix and model changes have increased, led to the price bands being relatively higher compared to the past. And if you see, this also then has to flow down into tier 1 like us and tier 2, and we are conscious of this and we are working on this. And however, as I mentioned, in a fair and win-win situation.
Got it, sir. Great. Thank you so much for taking my questions.
Thank you,
Sonal.
The next question is from the line of Jinesh Gandhi from Motilal Oswal Financial Services. Please go ahead.
Hi, sir. First question pertains to just clarification on the RM cost side. So clearly there is some impact of forex, adverse forex movement on the RM side. So for us, is forex cost passed through or that is on negotiation basis?
So I didn't get the name. Is it
Dinesh.
Jinesh Gandhi from Motilal Oswal.
Thank you, Dinesh. So we have a very robust system of contracting, Dinesh, and of course it's customer to customer. And I'm sure you followed our company for quite a while, and our contracting process with our OEMs and also with others is robust, very clear. And again, it depends on case to case, but we do ensure that risks are mitigated, including forex, as well as, very importantly, we also have a very strong treasury, and we do a very strong risk management through hedging. So on both fronts, whether it's a customer front, where we have very transparent but solid contracting, as also in our own internal processes, because Bosch is a very process-oriented company. We have strong processes on risk management in our forex, including very systematic hedging.
Okay, great. Second question pertains to the BS6 Phase 2, which will be applicable from April 23. So how do we see that as that transition influencing our product offerings?
So, Dinesh, this part of it, what you're referring to, we call it in Bosch core and then rewiring the core. And Bosch is very strong both in core and in rewiring the core in Bosch India, that is Bosch Limited, in the automotive area and therefore the powertrain area. So I mentioned to you, you have to look at the emission and legislation roadmap for all elements of mobility. And I can assure you and your colleagues that Bosch plays on these areas front-ended, just like BS4 to BS6. So I don't have to go through every element, where we are very strongly front-ended, where we can support our customers from inception right up to SOP. And I think that's our USP on our strength. And I also mentioned to you, Dinesh, that we have the largest R&D center in India. This is not just for powertrain, but the largest R&D center across all our sectors outside Germany. So these things we tackle. And my final point, which you have not asked, but for this to be answered for some of y'all who may ask this question, as my colleague mentioned, our parent is very strong on the transitioning to the transformation which will happen in India. For example, the last 12 years, our parent has spent between 450 to 500 million euro for the last 12 years on electrification, hydrogen, hydrogen ICE, hydrogen FCEV, stationary fuel cell, and so on and so forth. So, and we are very strong.
Thoughts on how diesel on the passenger vehicle side will get impacted under BS6 Phase 2 or RDE norms?
Dinesh, we've come to a settling point diesel. Yeah. This question which you had asked is a very valid question, for example, 2 years ago. If you remember, a few years ago, 5 years ago, India had touched the peak at 48% of diesel, nearly half up. And it climbed, from 15%. So today at 18 to 20% of diesel share, example on passenger cars and utility vehicles, is something that is settling down. Of course, content per vehicle is going up, where Bosch has a play. Of course, there's many segments, like for example SUVs, where people still prefer the higher torque and therefore diesel. So we believe this is going to stay there. We believe ICE will still play a dominant role, and we believe that the transitioning and the transformation will also happen, all of which we are doing. And of course, Bosch Limited also works with our sister companies. For example, we work very closely with our sister company which makes the ECUs which go through Bosch Limited finally. So quite a few things also then from our sister companies goes through Bosch Limited.
Got it. Thanks. I'll fall back. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Rajesh Ranganathan from Doric Capital. Please go ahead.
Hi, thanks for the opportunity. While diesel has settled down to a certain level, CNG has been increasing in India, both in passenger cars and in LCVs. Can you please comment about our strength in CNG and how that compares to, say, our strength in diesel? Hello?
Okay, CNG is a part of our portfolio also. Bosch has CNG solutions. Bosch has solutions for flex fuel. So we see that in certain segments, you're right. We see in certain cities, again, you're right. Right now, if you look at the overall percentage, it's relatively still pretty low. But if you look at segment-wise and if you look at cities, it's happening. So Bosch has a play on CNG, and we also have solutions for it.
And would you be able to comment on our relative strength between, say, our strength in diesel versus CNG?
Look, Rajesh, I'll give you a small example. Bosch came to India in 1953 with inline pumps, diesel. Relatively, we came later into gasoline. But look at our presence in gasoline today. In a market which is relatively more fragmented, it's pretty strong. So in CNG also we have the technology. You have to yourself understand and accept that CNG in relation to rollout in India is very much dependent, like EV, on infrastructure. So while certain cities like Delhi have had after Pang improved infrastructure, CNG has not been a rollout across India. So A, it will take time for that to happen. B, it will be city specific based on infrastructure and acceptance. And C, it will be segment specific. So we have the strength. Bosch, our parent, and Bosch India is a full portfolio organization. And we will use our strength whenever required based on to get deeper into the market. So your question is valid. The total weightage is still relatively low, and we have our entire portfolio.
Thank you. And with respect to, in the previous calls, we've discussed this, and you mentioned that you have a roadmap for localization, and you also participated in the government scheme for localization. And also you had a plan for discussing with the global Bosch organization for potentially making India a hub for exports, especially for diesel-related technologies. If you could comment on these three in terms of what has been the progress over the last few months, in terms of what decisions have been made or how much progress has been made in these three areas?
So first question is on PLI. yes, the Bosch Group has applied, including Bosch Limited, and we've been approved. So we are embedded on it, and we will work, and we are working on that. The second part is in relation to diesel. We retain our strengths in diesel and gasoline and allied areas. And we have brought in for our various plants different elements from our various sister companies or even countries, and done certain amount of strong consolidation. And we will continue to look and focus wherever it makes sense for our company, Bosch Group as a whole. We will continue to remain strongly local for local. In relation to export, we look while, I have mentioned that we have strong focus on growth in the domestic market, which you will continue to see this year and the years to come. This year, when I mean fiscal year 22-23 over the previous fiscal. We will, be in a bandwidth depending on what we need to do as a policy and strategy between 9 and 12% on export. Perhaps the max we could go over the years would be 15, but our domestic and local play will have the highest weightage as before. So there's a clear strategy on what we will do and what we will not do. And finally, on diesel, yes, I endorse in your direction what you mentioned. We will use our strength to do further consolidations.
And on localization, if you could comment on the progress.
On localization, we have a very systematic localization plan, partly driven by PLI, but greatly driven by business. So we have always focused and met localization targets right from the time of nozzle holder assemblies, common rail injectors, pumps, and we have multiple plants in India, and we will continue doing that. But again, I make one point very clear. We'll not do localization for localization. We will do when it makes sense. So sometimes, this question is a little counterproductive, because if you localize for localization and it is not meaningful, then you actually don't aid business. So we have a robust process. We have done it in the past. We are continuing to do it, and we'll do it in the future, but at the right time.
Thank you so much, and wish you all best of luck. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajesh.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Sanjay Satpathy from Ampersand. Please go ahead.
Hi, sir. Thanks a lot for the opportunity, and also congrats on a decent set of results. You have already discussed about localization plans, etc. But if you can just help us in understanding that current profitability, the profit margin of yours is really far from the 18-19% kind of margin that you used to enjoy pre-COVID and BS6. So is there a possibility that you can go back to those kind of margin in near future?
Rajesh, that's a very leading question, and it's also a guidance question. So very politely, but as always, I'll have to tell you, A, we do not give guidance, and B, we don't take leading questions. However, I'll give you an answer in a generic way for you to get a direction. If you look at Bosch Limited, we have also been investing a certain percentage of our profits for new business areas very actively. Yeah? And this is what is called as preparing the soil for the future. So we will spend good amount of money in our electrification process, in our hydrogen roadmap, in different elements for the future. And this is something which you get payback for the future. The request I have to you and your community is, please look at the mid and long term and not quarter to quarter. Because we should not get into a euphoria on a quarterly result which goes up or in a bit of a depression when it goes down. So this company is prepared to invest for the future, which will bring in future sustainable benefits with the optimal profit. Second, we have very strict cost control processes. And third, very importantly, Rajesh, we have right-sized the company. If many of the analysts will know that this company had a headcount some 7-8 years ago of 11 to 12,000 people. Today, if you look at the permanent headcount, we are nearly half. And therefore, our productivity levels are very high. If you remember, many of you, I mentioned when you asked why is EBIT down to 7%, in 1920 and 2021, we did a 3R program, and one of the sub-elements was we spent 750 crores each year for the 3R, redeployment, reskill, and restructure. And today, you're just seeing the financial result on personal cost, but what you're not seeing is the huge competency building that we are doing, whether it's digital fluency. You're not seeing that Bosch Limited has climbed to the top quartile of the GPTW and is now amongst the best workplaces in automotive component and auto companies. And the good news is, 3 days ago, when we did our dipstick, we have further improved. So you must understand that we are tackling business in a holistic way. People who are the greatest asset will take this company forward. Infrastructure. We gave you an example of the 76-acre campus, which is one of the smartest and the best. Our average age of this company, Bosch Limited, is now down to 37. And most importantly, looking at future mix of talent linked to technology. So in summary, I would say, and this you also see in our growth in powertrain, and then you see our growth in aftermarket, and all this profitable growth. And finally, you will see that we will continue to invest significant sums and optimal sums for new technologies and still give a decent return, which I call a double-digit EBIT.
Understood. Sir, thanks a lot, sir. My name to start with is Sanjay. I was just
sorry, Sanjay.
Correcting it. And thanks a lot for this elaborate answer. And when you were saying that you are currently investing for electric mobility and all those new technology, so it seems like your business development related expenses are on the higher side. But when I'm looking at the mix, the cost mix, you are, as you correctly said, your staff costs have fallen compared to what used to be as a percentage of sales. Your other expenses and most other things have fallen. The only thing where the increase has happened is in the material cost as a percentage of sales, which used to be 55% of sales, has gone up to upwards of 60%. And can you clarify if that is where all your development costs are sitting, and or that the bought out components are so much higher nowadays that the raw material costs have gone up, and you will have to do a lot of input substitution as well as localization, and those will be very critical and really long drawn out process that is at least 3-4 years away before you kind of settle into your historical margin level.
So Sanjay, that's again a leading question. Yeah, you know it and I know it, but I'll answer part of it. Basically, in terms of material cost, you have to understand a product mix change has changed the material cost for not just us, the entire industry. So that correction, I think I would request from you and the community. BS4 to BS6 changed the material content for everyone. You added exhaust gas treatment, yeah, and you added a few other things. So your material content will go up if your product mix changes.
Yes. Hello.
Hello, Mr. Satpathy.
Yeah.
Is that answer your question, sir?
I couldn't hear actually. Anyway,
I'll check.
doesn't matter.
So we are not able to hear you. Ladies and gentlemen, request you all to please stay connected while we check the line for the management. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for patiently waiting. The line for the management is reconnected. Over to you, sir.
Sanjay, I'm back. I heard what you were asking, and I'm going to keep my answer short.
Sure, sir.
The material content, if it goes up, there are different elements to it. And one part is the mix. And I gave you an example of BS4 to BS6, and that can be applied elsewhere. This is not for Bosch only. This is for the industry. Please understand that. Second is you can cover the mix with the right optimal pricing, which we do. Third is raw material price increases across the world has happened. I suppose you would agree to that on RMI, ECI, and LCI, and that we are tackling. Yeah. So in summary, we have a clear localization plan for product-wise and also systems-wise. Second, we do by design a mix change, which requires for different norms and emissions and legislations, which are bringing us closer to Europe and reducing the gap in number of years in terms of technology. And third, we are very, very clear of, because some of your colleagues asked on Forex and XYZ, which we have been doing for decades and we will do. Summary, when you have EBIT, you have to manage your EBIT to also invest for the future, which in the last few years we've started aggressively also doing. And after all this, we will still deliver a double-digit EBIT.
Thanks a lot, and wish you all the best, and we sincerely wish that you'll bounce back to sector-leading margin sometime soon.
Thank you, Sanjay.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Ravi Purohit from Securities Investment Management. Please go ahead.
Hi, good evening, gentlemen. Thanks for taking my question. From whatever you've mentioned so far on the call about localization, is it fair to assume that all our future localization programs are going to be driven through the PLI-led capex? And if yes, then does it require us to set up new greenfield manufacturing units to participate in this PLI, or whether the existing plans will suffice for us to kind of do this PLI-led capex? And second is, can you please provide an update on the 100% subsidiary which we had created 2 years back to take the benefit of the new income tax dispensation at 15%? And because the manufacturing will need to start by March 24, so how are we and where are we for that company?
Okay, Ravi, very briefly, our localization, again, I have mentioned to you before, but I'll say it. Of course, we have applied for the PLI, and of course, we are going to work on the PLI. But we have been doing localization also without the PLI. So the answer is and, not or. And even during PLI, we'll use PLI, and we will still continue to do localization. In relation to the 15% company, we have something in it. We are looking for other things which are meaningful, and we are not doing it for the tax benefit. In relation to our plants, we have the adequate capacity, both for existing as well as future expansions, as also the people. Finally, are we willing to invest money into all this, either through P&L or for capex? You have seen we have done it year-wise. And even during COVID, we did not stop either on the revenue or on the capex. We did not go shy. So we'll continue this. I want to make one point, Ravi, to you, but also to all colleagues. Yeah. Bosch Limited and Bosch in India is a company which is a long-standing player which looks at putting its actions for the mid and long run, not on a quarter-to-quarter basis. This you have to appreciate, understand, and also please accept.
I think also PLI does not require that it needs to be greenfield. So PLI has certain definition of how it qualifies. For example, the products need to be advanced automotive technologies, or the value add needs to be at a certain level, and so on. There is no requirement that it needs to be greenfield.
Right. Okay. Thanks for the clarification. And just to clarify to Mr. Bhattacharya also, we are not really seeking answers for quarter-on-quarter basis. All our questions, and we could go back and check on all the calls that we've been there. Our questions are always over the next 3 to 5 years. What is our horizon? What is the plan? And what is the strategy? So please be rest assured, our focus is not on quarter-to-quarter basis. Thank you.
I'm delighted, Sanjay. Sorry, Ravi.
Yeah.
So with that, I think that is the last question. And I look forward to, again, contacting you all either in our future meetings, yeah?
So should we conclude the call?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Batlivala and Karani Securities India Private Limited, that concludes this conference call. Thank you for joining us, and you may now disconnect your lines.